5 black sisters were about to be separated forever when a lonely old white man walked into the orphanage. Years later, during his hospital stay, what the girls did made every nurse freeze. James Wilson's footsteps echoed through the empty hallway of his 2-story house. His arthritis-stiffened fingers traced the edge of a silver photo frame on the wall. Behind the glass, his late wife Margaret smiled at him, her gray hair neatly styled for their 40th anniversary celebration. 5 years had passed since the cancer took her. Another quiet morning, he muttered, shuffling into the kitchen. The coffee maker gurgled, filling his favorite mug, the one with "World's Best Teacher" printed on it, now chipped at the rim. The morning sun streamed through unwashed windows, highlighting the layer of dust on the counter. The doorbell rang, breaking his routine. James checked his watch, 9:15 a.m. Mr. Wilson. A young woman in a navy blazer stood on his porch, clutching a manila folder. "I'm Sarah Chen from Child Protective Services. May I come in?" James adjusted his reading glasses. "I'm not sure I understand, It's about an urgent case." She held up her ID badge. "I heard you used to work with troubled youth at the university." He stepped aside, letting her enter. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor as she followed him to the living room. Papers and books cluttered every surface, and James hastily cleared a spot on the couch. "Coffee?" he offered. "No, thank you." Sarah opened a folder. "Mr. Wilson, I'll be direct. We have 5 sisters at Golden Grove Children's Home. They've been there for 8 months, and we're running out of options." James sat in his worn leather armchair, the springs creaking under his weight. "What do you mean, running out of options?" "The girls need to be adopted together. They've already been through 3 failed foster placements because families only want to take 1 or 2 of them." She spread 5 photographs on the coffee table. Tiana, 14. Keisha, 12. Twins Jasmine and Jessica, 9. And Maya, 6. James leaned forward, studying the faces. 5 pairs of dark eyes stared back at him. The oldest girl's expression was guarded, an arm protectively wrapped around the youngest. "Why are you showing me this?" Sarah's voice softened. "Because you grew up in the system yourself, Mr. Wilson. Your file says you aged out of St. Michael's Home for Boys in 1974. His throat tightened. The memories hit him like a physical blow. Cold dormitories, shared clothes, the ache of watching other kids leave with their new families. That was a long time ago. These girls will be separated by next week. Different homes, different cities. Sarah's words hung in the air. Unless someone steps up. James stood abruptly, his knee protesting. "I'm 65 years old, Ms. Chen. I live alone. I'm not what these children need. Would you at least consider meeting them?" She gathered the photos. "The home is having a visitor day tomorrow at 10. He walked her to the door, shaking his head. "I'm sorry you wasted your time. Think about it, Mr. Wilson." She left her card on the entry table. Sometimes the most unlikely solutions are exactly what's needed. That night, James couldn't sleep. He paced the upstairs hallway, past empty bedrooms that had never held children. Margaret had wanted kids, but fertility treatments failed, and by the time they considered adoption, her cancer had already spread. At 3 a.m., he found himself in his study, typing Golden Grove Children's Home into his laptop. The website showed smiling faces and success stories, but James scrolled until he found them, 5 girls in matching blue dresses, standing by a playground. The next morning, he parked his old Volvo outside Golden Grove. Through the chain-link fence, he watched children playing in the yard. A basketball bounced against concrete. Jump ropes slapped the ground. And there, under an oak tree, 5 girls sat in a tight circle. The youngest looked up, spotting him. She waved, a gap-toothed smile spreading across her face. James felt something crack in his chest. "Look at that old man," he heard a passing mother say to her husband. "What's he doing here alone?" James's face burned. He gripped his car keys, ready to leave. "You must be Mr. Wilson." A staff member approached the fence. Sarah called ahead. "Would you like to come inside?" His hand trembled as he signed the visitor log. Down the hallway, he heard a child crying. The walls were covered in crayon drawings and construction paper hearts. "The girls are having lunch," the staff member said. "You can observe from the cafeteria door." James stood in the doorway, watching. The oldest girl, Tiana, cut a sandwich into tiny pieces for Maya. The twins shared a bag of chips, counting them out equally. Keisha braided Maya's hair with careful fingers. A family. They were already a family. His phone buzzed. A text from his neighbor. Tom, saw you at the home. What are you thinking? At your age? More messages followed. This is crazy. You can't handle 5 kids. People will talk. James turned off his phone. He sat in his car for an hour, hands gripping the steering wheel. The sky darkened with approaching rain. Inside his empty house, the silence pressed against his ears. He walked from room to room, counting master bedroom, guest room, home office, 2 spare rooms that held only boxes. 5 empty spaces. The storm broke outside. Lightning illuminated Margaret's photo. His hands shook as he dialed Sarah's number. The girls, he said when she answered. They're separating them next week. Tuesday morning. Different foster homes across the state. James closed his eyes. He saw Maya's wave, Tiana's protective stance, the twins sharing their chips, Keisha's gentle hands in her sister's hair. I want to apply, he heard himself say. To adopt them. All of them. Thunder rolled overhead. The house creaked, as if adjusting to the weight of his decision. Sarah's voice crackled through the phone. Are you sure about this? He looked at Margaret's photo again. No, he admitted. But I'm sure those girls belong together. And I have room, I have time, I have dash. Love. Sarah finished softly. James sat in his chair, rain drumming against the windows. Yes, he whispered. I think I do. The fluorescent lights of Golden Grove's administrative office buzzed overhead as James pushed through the door at 8 a.m. sharp. His tie felt too tight, his freshly pressed shirt already damp with sweat. I need to speak to someone about the Wilson sisters, he announced to the receptionist. His voice came out louder than intended, making several heads turn. Sir, adoption applications are by appointment only dash. They're being separated on Tuesday. James planted his hands on the counter. I'm not leaving until I speak with someone. Sarah Chin emerged from a back office, files clutched to her chest. Mr. Wilson? I didn't expect you so early. You said they are running out of time. So am I. He straightened his spine, fighting the morning stiffness. I want to start the process. Now. 20 minutes later, James sat across from a panel of 3 social workers in a cramped conference room. The air conditioning rattled in the window behind them. Mr. Wilson, the oldest woman began, reading from his hastily completed forms. You're 65, retired, widowed, living alone. No experience with children besides teaching college students. No experience with transracial adoption. No support system in place for 5 high-needs children. I have a 4-bedroom house that's paid off. A good pension. Savings. James leaned forward. And I know what it's like to watch siblings get split up in the system. Sarah cleared her throat. James has excellent references from his university career. His background check is clean. This isn't about qualifications on paper. The second social worker tapped her pen against the table. Mr. Wilson, have you considered the cultural implications? The daily challenges? 5 black girls being raised by an elderly white man. The community scrutiny alone dash. I'm not here to debate social issues. James cut in. I'm here because 5 sisters need a home. Together. The third social worker, who hadn't spoken yet, finally looked up. Let's have you meet them properly. All of them. Then we can discuss next steps. The playroom was painted in primary colors, scattered with toys and books. James sat in a child-sized chair, his knees nearly touching his chest, waiting. The door opened. 5 girls filed in, led by Tiana. Her chin was lifted, shoulders back, eyes scanning James like a soldier assessing a threat. Girls, this is Mr. Wilson, Sarah introduced. He'd like to talk with you. Maya, the youngest, broke formation first. She picked up a stuffed elephant and brought it to James. This is Trunk, she announced. He's scared of thunderstorms too. James accepted the elephant carefully. Thank you, Maya. Does Trunk have any other friends? Just us. She climbed onto a nearby chair. Nobody wants him, cause his ear is torn. The twins, Jasmine and Jessica, exchanged glances. They wore identical blue sweaters, their hair in matching braids. Are you really trying to adopt us? Jasmine, or maybe Jessica, asked. Yes. James set Trunk on his knee. If you'd be willing to give me a chance. Keisha, the middle sister, stepped forward. Why? Because James paused, considering his words carefully. Because I know what it's like to feel unwanted. To watch other kids leave while you stay behind. To have people decide you're too much trouble to bother with. Tiana's expression flickered. You were in a home. St. Michael's. Ages 7 to 18. James ran a hand through his white hair. My brother went to a different home. I never saw him again. The room fell silent except for the hum of the heating vent. Maya hugged Trunk closer. What happened to your wife? Tiana asked suddenly. Cancer. 5 years ago. James met her gaze steadily. Her name was Margaret. She would have loved to meet you all. The home evaluation came next. James led a different social worker through his house, watching her note every imperfection. No child safety locks. No age-appropriate books. No cultural materials. Her pen scratched against her clipboard. The bedrooms need serious updating. And what's your plan for their hair care? Skin care? Cultural education? James's confidence wavered. I can learn. I'll take classes. Buy books. Find resources. Mr. Wilson. She stopped in the hallway. I need to be frank. The odds are stacked against this placement. The age gap, the cultural barriers, your lack of parenting experience, it's a lot to overcome. That night, James sat at his computer until his eyes burned, researching everything he could find about transracial adoption, black hair care, cultural competency. His printer ran out of ink at 2 a.m. The next morning, he faced the adoption committee. 12 people sat around a conference table, their expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. This is highly irregular, the chairman began. We have serious concerns. I know. James interrupted. He pulled out his research notes, hands shaking slightly. I know I'm not the ideal candidate. I'm too old, too white, too inexperienced. But those girls. His voice caught. Those girls deserve to stay together. They deserve a chance at a real family. Mr. Wilson. I grew up in the system, James continued, the words rushing out now. I slept in dormitories with 20 other boys. I wore handed-down clothes and ate donated food and watched my brother get taken away in a stranger's car. I know what it does to you. That feeling that no one wants you, that you're not worth keeping. The room stayed silent as he spoke. I have empty rooms. I have time. I have love to give. James straightened in his chair. And most importantly, I have the will to learn whatever I need to learn to be what those girls need. Test me. Train me. Monitor me. But please don't separate them. The chairman cleared his throat. You understand this would be a highly scrutinized placement? Regular check-ins, mandatory training, continuous evaluation. Yes. And you're prepared for the challenges? The potential community backlash? The steep learning curve? Yes. The committee members exchanged looks. Papers shuffled. Someone coughed. We'll need to interview the girls, the chairman said finally. And there's no guarantee. Thank you. James stood, his legs unsteady. That's all I'm asking for. A chance. In the hallway, he heard Maya's voice floating from the playroom. Can we call him Daddy? Not yet, Tiana answered. We have to wait and see. James leaned against the wall, his heart pounding. Wait and see. It was more hope than he'd had in 5 years of empty rooms and quiet mornings. He pulled out his phone and looked at the new tabs he'd bookmarked. Black hair care basics, transracial adoption support groups, cultural competency training. A new text from his neighbor popped up. Town's talking. Think about your reputation. James deleted the message without reading further. He had more important things to think about, like where to buy 5 new bed sets and how to learn to braid hair. The social worker's van pulled into James's driveway at exactly noon. 5 small suitcases lined up on the curb like soldiers. Some neighbors peered through their curtains, not even trying to hide their curiosity. This is really happening, James muttered, wiping his sweaty palms on his pants. Maya burst out of the van first, clutching Trunk the elephant. Mr. Wilson, is this really your whole house? Our house now, he corrected, his voice rough. Come on in. The other girls emerged more slowly. The twins held hands. Keisha carried a backpack that had seen better days. Tiana came last, watching everything with wary eyes. Kitchen stocked, Sarah said, helping with the bags. Emergency numbers on the fridge. Remember, I'm just a phone call away. James nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The girls' footsteps echoed through the house, his no longer empty house. Can we see our rooms? Jessica, or was it Jasmine? Asked. Upstairs. James led the way, his knee protesting each step. I wasn't sure how you wanted to arrange things. The twins immediately claimed the blue room, dropping their bags on the twin beds. Keisha hesitated between the yellow room and the green one. I want the pink room, Maya announced, bouncing on the bed James had spent hours assembling. Tiana stood in the hallway, not moving toward any door. The master bedroom's down there, James pointed. Thought you might like your own space, being the oldest. She looked at him sharply. What about you? I moved my things to the downstairs study. Converted it to a bedroom. He shrugged. Easier on the knee anyway. Something flickered across Tiana's face. Surprise, maybe gratitude. She disappeared into the master bedroom without a word. The first crisis hit at dinner. James had ordered pizza, unsure what else to do. I don't like pepperoni, Maya announced, picking at her slice. Since when? Keisha asked. Since now. Just eat it, Tiana said tiredly. You're not the boss. Maya's lower lip trembled. Actually, James interrupted. There's plain cheese in the other box. And we can make a list of foods everyone likes and doesn't like. For next time. Maya's face brightened. Tiana stabbed at her pizza. The silence stretched uncomfortable and thick. Forks scraped against plates. Someone kicked the table leg rhythmically. So, James cleared his throat. School starts Monday. We should probably talk about morning routines. I can do Maya's hair, Keisha offered quickly. I want to try, James said. If you'll teach me. 5 pairs of eyes stared at him. You want to learn to do black hair? Jasmine asked incredulously. Yes. I've been watching tutorials, but I'm sure I'll need practice. You'll mess it up, Maya said, but she was grinning. Probably, James agreed, but I'll keep trying until I get it right. Later, he found himself facing his first real challenge, Maya's bedtime hair routine. You have to section it first, Keisha directed, standing in the bathroom doorway. No, smaller sections. And you need more oil. James's fingers felt clumsy with the tiny elastics. Maya squirmed on the stool. Ouch! Sorry. He loosened his grip. Maybe we should wait for morning. No, you're almost done, Keisha encouraged. Just 2 more twists. Somewhere in the house, a door slammed. James jumped, pulling too hard. Tiana! Maya called out. His learning. Footsteps in the hallway. Tiana appeared, arms crossed. You're doing it wrong, she said flatly. Heh. She took the comb from his hands, her movements quick and sure. Like this. James watched, trying to memorize every motion. Thank you. She didn't respond, but she stayed until Maya's hair was properly done. The first night brought its own challenges. Strange creaks echoed through the house. New shadows played on unfamiliar walls. At midnight, James found Maya in the hallway, crying silently. I want my old bed, she whispered. He sat on the floor next to her, his joints complaining. I know it's scary. New places always are. Can I sleep with Tiana? Let's ask her. But Tiana's room was empty. Panic seized James's chest until he heard sounds from downstairs. He found her in the living room, tearing something. In the dim light, he saw fragments of photos scattered on the floor, his wedding photos, pictures of Margaret. Tiana dash. This isn't our home, she said, her voice thick. This isn't our family. You're not dash, she choked on the words. James knelt painfully to pick up a torn photo. Margaret smiled up at him from the fragment. You're right, he said quietly. I'm not trying to replace anyone. And Margaret, she's not trying to replace your mother. These photos are my memories, just like you have yours. We don't, Tiana whispered, have photos. They got lost in the moves. James's heart clenched. Then we'll make new ones. Not to replace the old memories, to add to them. Maya appeared in the doorway, trunk dragging behind her. Titi. Tiana wiped her eyes quickly. Go back to bed. Maya. Can't sleep. New house sounds weird. James looked at the torn photos, at Maya's trembling lip, at Tiana's rigid shoulders. How about some hot chocolate? He suggested. Just this once. In the kitchen, he heated milk while Maya arranged marshmallows in patterns. Tiana sat at the counter, watching. My first night at St. Michael's, James said as he stirred. I was 7. Couldn't sleep. The night supervisor found me trying to walk home. How far did you get? Tiana asked, accepting a mug. The front gate. He smiled slightly. But he didn't send me back to bed. Sat with me in the kitchen, told me stories until I felt brave enough to try sleeping again. Did it get easier? Maya asked around a mouthful of marshmallow. Yes. Not right away. But yes. The kitchen clock ticked steadily. Steam rose from their mugs. Outside, a car passed, its headlights sweeping across the windows. I'm sorry about the photos, Tiana said finally. We'll get some frames tomorrow. Start our own collection. James sipped his chocolate. Maybe take one of all of us. If you want. Tiana didn't answer, but when Maya fell asleep against her shoulder, she didn't pull away. The night stretched long. James heard footsteps above, the twins switching beds, Keisha pacing, doors opening and closing as his new daughters navigated their first night in yet another strange place. But this time was different, he told himself. This time they were home, even if none of them quite believed it yet. In the morning, he'd face the neighbor's stares, learn to do hair properly, figure out school schedules and dinner preferences, and how to be a father to 5 girls who had every reason not to trust him. For now, though, he sat in his kitchen with 2 of his daughters, counting marshmallows and listening to the new sounds of his no longer empty house. Dawn found him asleep in his chair, a torn photo in his lap, and Maya's elephant trunk tucked carefully beside him. Maya, your shoes are on the wrong feet. James called up the stairs, checking his watch for the 10th time. 7:45 a.m. They were already running late for their first day of school. Backpacks cluttered the hallway. Someone was crying in the bathroom, one of the twins, from the sound of it. I can't find my permission slip. Keisha shouted from the kitchen. Check your folder. James tried to tie Maya's shoes while she bounced in place. Tiana, are you dash? I'm not wearing this. Tiana appeared at the top of the stairs, holding up the new yellow sweater he'd bought. I look like a kindergartner. Fine, wear whatever you want. But we need to dash. The smoke alarm cut him off, blaring from the kitchen. The toast. He limped to the kitchen, where smoke rose from the toaster. Keisha was still rifling through her backpack, papers scattered across the floor. Everyone in the car, James announced, grabbing his keys. We'll get breakfast on the way. 5 minutes later, they piled into his old Volvo. Maya's hair was only half done. The twins wore mismatched socks, and no one had eaten breakfast. First stop, McDonald's, James declared, pulling out of the driveway. His neighbor Tom stood at his mailbox, shaking his head. After dropping the girls at 3 different schools, James headed to Shalia's beauty supply. The bell jingled as he pushed open the door. Can I help you? A woman behind the counter looked up from her magazine. I need. James pulled out his phone, checking his notes. Edge control, leave-in conditioner, hair oil, and something called a silk bonnet. She raised an eyebrow. For my daughters. The word still felt new on his tongue. I'm learning to do their hair. The woman, her name tag read Lakeisha, studied him for a long moment. Then her face softened. Come on, she said, stepping around the counter. Let's get you started. An hour later, James left with 2 bags full of supplies and a crash course in basic hair care. His phone buzzed. A call from Jasmine and Jessica's school. Mr. Wilson, we need you to come in. There's been an incident. He found the twins in the principal's office. Jessica had a scratch on her cheek. Jasmine's braids were coming undone. A boy called us Oreos, Jessica explained, her voice small. Said we must be adopted, 'cause we have a white dad. Then Jessica pushed him, Jasmine added quickly. But only 'cause he tried to touch her hair. The principal, a thin woman with wire-rimmed glasses, cleared her throat. We have a zero-tolerance policy for physical violence dash. Do you have the same policy for racial harassment? James interrupted, his voice sharp. For touching students without permission. Mr. Wilson dash. My daughters were defending themselves. And each other. He stood, offering his hands to the twins. We're going home. And tomorrow, I expect that boy's parents to be here too. In the car, Jessica sniffled. Are you mad at us? No, honey. James gripped the steering wheel. I'm mad at anyone who tries to hurt you. That evening, he attempted to make his mother's lasagna recipe for dinner. The kitchen filled with smoke for the second time that day. Maybe we should order pizza again, Keisha suggested diplomatically. No. James pulled the burnt casserole from the oven. We're going to have a proper family dinner. Even if dash. Even if what? Tiana stood in the doorway. Even if you have to pretend everything's normal? That this isn't weird and hard and dash. Tiana. James set down the ruined dinner. I know this is hard. For all of us. But we're trying dash no. You're trying to play house. To act like you can just buy us stuff and learn to do hair and make everything okay. The kitchen fell silent. Maya clutched Trunk closer. The twins exchanged worried looks. You're right, James said quietly. I can't make everything okay. I can't erase what you've been through or pretend this isn't complicated. But I'm not playing house, Tiana. I'm trying to build one. With you. All of you. Tiana's face crumpled for just a second before she turned away. Whatever. I'm not hungry anyway. The doorbell rang before James could respond. He opened it to find Sarah Chen on his porch. Surprise inspection, she announced, holding up her clipboard. Standard procedure for the first week. James led her through the house, trying to explain the breakfast chaos, the school incident, the burnt dinner. The transition period is always challenging, Sarah said, making notes. But I'm concerned about the level of structure. The girls need stability. Routine a crash from upstairs interrupted her. They rushed up to find Maya sitting in a pile of broken glass. One of Margaret's old perfume bottles lay shattered on the floor. I just wanted to smell it, Maya whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Like a real mom. James's heart squeezed. He carefully lifted Maya away from the glass while Sarah watched, still writing. Are you hurt? He checked her hands, her feet. It's okay. It was just a bottle. But it was special, Maya hiccuped. It was your wife's. You're more special. James hugged her close, not caring that Sarah was documenting everything. You're all more special than anything we could ever break. Later, after Sarah left with her pages of notes and concerns, James found Keisha sitting in her closet. Maya feels bad, she said when he opened the door. About the bottle. I know. He slid down to sit beside her, his joints protesting. Why are you hiding in here? Sometimes. Keisha picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. Sometimes it's easier to be small. To hide. Then nobody expects anything from you. James thought of his own childhood, of dark corners and quiet hiding places. You don't have to hide anymore, he said softly. Not from me. Not from anything. Promise. Promise. That night, James lay on his study-turned bedroom floor, surrounded by hair care products and parenting books. His phone lit up with messages from the neighbors' watch group. Children running wild. No proper supervision. What was the agency thinking? He turned off his phone. Above, he could hear footsteps, his daughters settling into another night in their new home. Maya singing to Trunk. The twins whispering. Keisha's closet door creaking open. And Tiana, pacing. Always pacing. James touched his wedding ring, still on his finger after 5 years. I'm trying, Margaret, he whispered to the dark. I'm trying so hard to get this right. The ceiling creaked again. Someone laughed. A real laugh, not forced or fearful. Maybe, James thought, that was enough for now. Not perfect, not normal, but trying. Together. It's past curfew, James said, checking his watch again. 10:45 p.m. Tiana should have been home nearly 2 hours ago. Maybe the study group ran late, Keisha suggested from the couch, but her voice wavered. The twins sat on the stairs, still in their pajamas. Maya had fallen asleep clutching Trunk, her head on Jasmine's lap. I called her phone 12 times. James limped to the window again. The street remained empty except for falling autumn leaves. Texted. Nothing. She does this sometimes, Jessica said quietly. When it gets too much. James turned sharply. What do you mean, sometimes? In the other homes, Keisha explained. When she needed space. But she always came back. The words hit James like a physical blow. He grabbed his car keys. Stay here. Lock the doors. Call me if she comes back. The town looked different at night. Empty playgrounds cast strange shadows. The school parking lot sat dark and vacant. James drove past the library, the community center, the park. No sign of Tiana. His phone rang. Sarah Chen. The police are involved, she said without preamble. Standard procedure for missing foster children. She's not missing, James snapped. And she's not a foster child. She's my daughter. Silence on the line. Then, softer. James, I need to ask. Was there an argument? He gripped the steering wheel tighter, remembering. *8 hours earlier*. I don't need you checking my phone. Tiana had shouted, snatching her phone back from his desk. You're not my real father. While you live in my house *. That's just it. It's your house. Not ours. Never ours. She'd stormed upstairs, the words echoing. You can't just buy a family. Now, driving past darkened storefronts, James's chest tightened. He should have followed her, should have seen this coming. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Police at Old Cemetery on Hill Street. Girl matching description. James's tires squealed as he turned around. The cemetery gate stood open, iron bars gleaming in his headlights. Flashlight beams bounced between headstones. She's over here, an officer called out. By the Wilson plot. James's heart stopped. He knew that spot. He found Tiana sitting cross-legged in front of Margaret's headstone. Her cheeks glistened in the flashlight beam. She was a teacher too, Tiana said without looking up. I read her obituary online. James waved the officer's back, sinking painfully to the ground beside her. Middle school science, he confirmed. She loved it. Loved kids. Would she have wanted this? Us. More than anything. Tiana traced the engraved letters with her finger. Our mom, she tried. But the drugs. Every time she promised to get clean, to come back for us. James stayed silent, listening. The first home, they hit Keisha. Said she was too loud. Tiana's voice hardened. The second one separated us into different rooms, wouldn't let us talk to each other. The third. She stopped. You protected them, James said softly. All this time, you've been protecting them. I had to. Nobody else would. She turned to him finally, eyes fierce. I won't let anyone hurt them again. Including you. I know. James touched Margaret's headstone gently. That's why you're here, isn't it? Checking up on me through her. Tiana's shoulders shook. I had to know, had to make sure, that I'm not hiding something, that I won't turn out like the others. She nodded, tears falling freely now. Tiana, James said carefully, I'm not asking you to stop protecting them. But maybe you could let me help? Let me protect you too. I don't know how, she whispered. Neither do I. He offered his hand. But we could figure it out together. Somewhere in the distance, a police radio crackled. An owl hooted softly. They're waiting at home, James said. Your sisters. Probably scared. Tiana wiped her eyes. Maya's going to be mad I missed bedtime story. We'll read 2 tomorrow. She stood slowly, brushing grass from her jeans. Then, surprising them both, she helped James to his feet. The drive home was quiet. Tiana stared out the window, her phone dark in her lap. I saw the texts, she said suddenly. On your phone. From the neighbors. James tensed. Those don't matter. They said you're ruining your reputation. Your retirement. Your whole life. No. James pulled into their driveway, where lights still burned in every window. They're wrong. You girls are my life now. Before Tiana could respond, the front door burst open. Maya ran out in her pajamas, trunk flapping behind her. Titi, you came back. The other girls followed, surrounding their sister. Keisha looked like she'd been crying. The twins clung to Tiana's arms. I'm sorry, Tiana said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. They moved as one unit into the house, 5 sisters tangled together. James followed more slowly, his knee aching from sitting on the cold ground. In the kitchen, he found his phone lit up with messages. Sarah, police report filed. Need to document incident. Neighbor watch, teenage girl spotted in cemetery. Suspicious activity. Tom next door. This is exactly what we warned you about. James deleted them all. Then he made hot chocolate, 6 mugs this time. He found his daughters in the living room, squeezed together on the couch. Maya had crawled into Tiana's lap. Keisha was braiding her sister's hair with trembling fingers. I got your homework from your backpack, Jasmine said. In case you still want to do it. And I saved you dinner, Jessica added. It's actually good. We ordered Chinese. Tiana laughed wetly. I leave for a few hours and you replace Dad's cooking. The word hung in the air. Dad. She'd said it without thinking. James nearly dropped the hot chocolate tray. Well, he managed, passing out mugs. Can't really blame them. My lasagna could be classified as a weapon. More laughter, shaky but real. Maya stirred her marshmallows with intense concentration. Tell us about her, Tiana said suddenly. Your wife. What would she have thought? Really? James sat in his chair, cradling his mug. She would have loved you, he said simply. All of you. She would have been better at this than me. She'd already know how to do hair. For one thing. You're learning, Maya piped up loyally. She would have taught me faster. James smiled at the memory. But mostly she would have seen what I see. 5 amazing girls who deserve a home. A family. Love. Even when we run away. Tiana's voice was small. Especially then. James met her eyes. Because that's what family means. You can run, but you'll always have a home to come back to. They sat together until the hot chocolate grew cold, until Maya fell asleep against Tiana's shoulder, until the twins started nodding off. Time for bed, James announced finally. School tomorrow. Can we? Tiana hesitated. Can we leave the hall lights on? Just tonight? Of course. James understood. Light to guide the way home. Whatever you need. Later, he heard them moving between rooms, the twins checking on Tiana, Keisha bringing her a snack, Maya insisting on a good-night hug. Family, he thought. Messy and complicated and terrifying and beautiful. Worth every moment. James adjusted his tie in the courthouse bathroom mirror. His hands shook slightly. The custody hearing would start in 30 minutes. Your collar's crooked, Sarah said from the doorway. Hey. She straightened his shirt, her face serious. Remember, the judge will look at everything. Tiana's running away, the school incidents, the neighbor complaints dash. My girls are happy, James interrupted. They're doing well in school. They're together. That's what matters. Let's hope the judge agrees. In the hallway, his daughters sat on a wooden bench in their best dresses. Maya swung her feet, scuffing her new shoes. The twins kept smoothing their skirts. Keisha clutched a thick photo album. Tiana paced. What's that? James asked, nodding at the album. Evidence, Keisha said, to show we're a real family. Before James could respond, Tom from next door walked past with his wife Linda. They'd been subpoenaed as witnesses. Nothing personal, Tom muttered, not meeting James's eyes. The courtroom doors opened. A bailiff called their case number. Inside, James helped the girls find their seats. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, shuffled through papers. Custody evaluation for case number 2024 FC 143, she announced. Regarding the adoption of Tiana, Keisha, Jasmine, Jessica, and Maya Thompson by James Wilson. The social workers presented their reports first. Words like unstable environment and cultural concerns echoed through the room. Then Tom took the stand. The noise levels are disruptive, he testified. Children running in and out at all hours. And frankly, it doesn't look right. A single man his age with 5 teenage girls. James's fists clenched under the table. Maya reached for his hand. Has Mr. Wilson ever acted inappropriately? The judge asked. Well, no. But Dash, have you witnessed any abuse or neglect? No, but that's not the point, Dash. Then what is the point, Mr. Thompson? Tom shifted uncomfortably. It's just unusual. People talk. Let them, Tiana said loudly. Young lady, the judge warned, you'll have your turn. The school principal testified next about the fighting incident. The twins held hands so tight their knuckles went white. While we understand the provocation, she said, violence cannot be tolerated, Dash, even when someone's hurting your sister. Jessica burst out. Order. The judge rapped her gavel. Next witness. Sarah Chen took the stand. James held his breath. The placement has been challenging, she began. Mr. Wilson's age and lack of experience raised significant concerns. She paused, looking directly at the girls. However, she continued, I've observed genuine attachment forming. The girls are showing signs of stability. Their grades have improved. And most importantly, they're together. The judge leaned forward. You support continuing the placement. With proper support and monitoring, yes. These children need permanency, not another disruption. James felt tears pricking his eyes. Keisha squeezed his arm. Mr. Wilson, the judge called. Your turn. He stood shakily, using the table for support. Your Honor, I know how this looks. I'm too old, too white, too inexperienced. But those girls, his voice caught. Those girls are my daughters now. Not by blood, but by choice. By love. Love isn't always enough, the judge noted. No, but it's a start. James straightened his shoulders. I'm learning. Every day, I'm learning. How to do their hair, how to handle school drama, how to be a father. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. We're trying, together. And the community concerns. People will always talk. But I won't let fear of gossip stop me from giving 5 children a home. The judge studied him over her glasses. The girls have requested to speak. Unusual in these cases, but given their ages. Tiana, you first. Tiana stood, shoulders back like a soldier. I ran away last week, she said bluntly. Went to his wife's grave to make sure he was real. To make sure this wasn't another trick, another lie. The courtroom went silent. In our last home, they hit Keisha for dropping a plate. The one before that, they locked us in separate rooms at night. The one before that. She took a deep breath. James, Dad, he's different. He's trying. Really trying. She gestured to Keisha, who opened the photo album. Look, Tiana continued. This is him learning to braid Maya's hair. This is our first family dinner, even though he burned the lasagna. This is Christmas morning. He got up at 5 a.m. to make us hot chocolate. Page after page of photos. Small moments. Real moments. We're not perfect, Tiana said. We fight. We mess up. But we're family now. Please, please don't take that away. The other girls stood too, clustering around their sister. He reads me 2 stories every night, Maya announced. He came to my science fair, Keisha added. His learning to cook Jasmine started. Even though he's really bad at it, Jessica finished. Laughter rippled through the courtroom. Even the judge's mouth twitched. Mr. Wilson, she said finally. This is highly unconventional. Yes, Your Honor. The age gap alone raises concerns. Yes, Your Honor. And yet, she looked at the girls, still standing together. At the photo album. At James's trembling hands. The purpose of the foster system is to provide children with safe, loving homes, she continued. Sometimes those homes don't look like what we expect. James barely dared to breathe. I'm ordering continued monitoring. Monthly visits for 6 months. Mandatory parenting classes and cultural competency training. Anything, James promised. And girls? The judge looked at each sister in turn. This is your chance to speak up. If you have any doubts, any concerns. Is our dad, Tiana said simply. The judge nodded slowly. Then by the power vested in me by the state, I hereby approve the adoption of Tiana, Keisha, Jasmine, Jessica, and Maya Thompson by James Wilson. Maya squealed. The twins hugged. Keisha burst into tears. And Tiana, strong, protective Tiana, fell into James's arms. We did it, she whispered. We really did it. Outside the courtroom, Sarah handed James the final paperwork. Congratulations, she said, smiling. Though I warn you, teenage daughters are no joke. Good thing I've got 5 experts to teach me, James replied. Watching his girls, officially, legally, forever his girls, hugging each other by the window. Tom and Linda hurried past, avoiding eye contact. Let them talk, Tiana said firmly, taking James's hand. We know what's real. That night, they ordered pizza, no burnt lasagna to celebrate. Maya insisted on taking more photos for their album. The twins taught James a complicated handshake. Keisha started planning room renovations. And Tiana finally slept through the night, secure in the knowledge that this home, this family, was permanent. In his study-turned bedroom, James looked at the photo album one last time before bed. 5 faces smiled back at him, no longer guarded, no longer afraid. His daughters, his family, his heart, worth every battle, every doubt, every moment of chaos and fear and learning. Worth everything. The adoption party balloons still hung in the living room, slightly deflated after 3 days. James collected paper plates from various surfaces, his knee creaking less thanks to the new exercises his doctor recommended. Dad! Maya's voice carried down the stairs. We're going to be late for your class. James checked his watch, 6:45 p.m. The parenting class at the community center started at 7. Coming! He grabbed his notebook and car keys. All 5 girls waited by the door, an unusual sight that made him suspicious. Why are you all so eager for my parenting class? Because, Keisha grinned, Miss Angela promised to teach you box braids today. Box? What? You'll see, the twins said in unison, already heading for the car. The community center classroom held 6 other adoptive parents. Angela, their instructor, wrote cultural hair care on the whiteboard in big letters. Welcome back, everyone. She smiled at James and his daughters. Today's class is hands-on. Girls, you're our teaching assistants. For the next 2 hours, James struggled with partings and plats while Maya giggled at his concentration face. Smaller sections, Tiana directed, guiding his hands. Like a checkerboard. How do you make it so neat? James muttered, trying to separate another section. Practice, Angela said, demonstrating on a mannequin. Use a practice. But you're getting there. By the end of class, Maya sported slightly uneven but recognizable box braids on one side of her head. Not bad for a beginner, Keisha admitted, examining his work. Can I finish the other side at home? James asked hopefully. No way. Maya covered the untouched side of her head. I'll let Tiana do it. I don't want to go to school looking like a science experiment. The class laughed. James pretended to be offended, but pride swelled in his chest. His daughters felt secure enough to tease him now. At home, while Tiana fixed Maya's hair, James tackled a pile of paperwork on his desk. School forms, medical records, the therapist recommendations. A knock at his door interrupted his sorting. Dad? Jasmine peeked in. Can you help with my history project? It's about family trees. James set down his pen. Of course. Pull up a chair. She spread out a large poster board. In the center, she'd drawn a tree with many branches. See, this side is for birth family, she explained, pointing to the left branches. And this side is for chosen family. James's throat tightened as she wrote his name, connecting it to all 5 sisters. Is it okay? Jasmine asked quietly. To have both? More than okay, he assured her. Family is family, no matter how it grows. The next morning brought another milestone. Their first family therapy session. Tell me about the transition, Dr. Patel said, looking around her office at all 6 of them. What's been the hardest part? The staring, Jessica volunteered. At school, at the store, everyone stares. The cooking, Keisha added with a smirk. Dad tries, but, hey, James protested. I managed pancakes yesterday. After you burned the first batch, Tiana reminded him. And the second, Dr. Patel smiled. I hear laughter in these stories. That's a good sign. Tiana, what about you? What's been challenging? Tiana twisted her bracelet, a nervous habit James had noticed. Trusting, she said finally. Believing this is real. Permanent. And you, James? He looked at his daughters, really looked at them. Maya playing with Trunk's ears. The twins leaning against each other. Keisha doodling in her notebook. Tiana, still fidgeting but here, present. Letting go, he admitted. Of perfect. Of doing everything right the first time. Of what other people think. Speaking of other people, Dr. Patel checked her notes. How's the neighbors' response been? As if on cue, a basketball thumped against their fence outside. Kids shouting, then running away. Tom's grandkids, James sighed. They're not allowed to play with the girls anymore. Their loss, Tiana said firmly. The session continued, unpacking 6 months of changes, fears, hopes. When they left, Dr. Patel pulled James aside. They are attaching well, she said. Even Tiana. Keep doing what you're doing. That evening, James attempted spaghetti for dinner. The smoke alarm stayed blessedly silent. Actual edible food, Keisha declared, twirling noodles on her fork. It's a miracle. Must be all those cooking videos you've been watching, Jessica observed. James felt himself blush. You noticed? Dad, Jasmine rolled her eyes. We can hear you in the kitchen at night. No, the sauce goes in after the garlic. Maya giggled. You talk to the computer like it can hear you. Well, it worked, didn't it? James gestured at their empty plates. Tiana stood to clear the table. As she passed James's chair, she paused. Dad. Thank you. For trying. For everything. The words hung in the air, simple but heavy with meaning. Later, after Maya's bedtime story, too, as always, James found a note slipped under his door. How to be a dad, progress report. It read in Keisha's neat handwriting. Hair braiding, C+, improving. Cooking, B-, no fires this week. Homework help, A hugs, A+ dad jokes, F please stop, overall grade, A keep trying. Beneath were signatures from all 5 girls, even Tiana. James pinned it to his bulletin board, next to Margaret's photo. Look at that, he said softly. I'm getting grades again. A thump upstairs, then giggles. The twins, definitely past bedtime. Girls, he called. Lights out. 5 more minutes. Please. Just one more game. Dad, they started it. No fair. Tiana. James shook his head, smiling. The noise, the chaos, the life filling his once quiet house, he wouldn't trade it for anything. Even if his cooking still needed work. Even if his braiding made Maya look like a science experiment. Even if the neighbors still whispered. This was family. Messy, complicated, beautiful family. He checked the calendar, parent-teacher conferences next week, Keisha's art show the week after, Maya's dance recital coming up. His quiet retirement had transformed into a whirlwind of activity, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Dad. Maya's voice drifted down. One more story? Please. You already had 2. But Trunk can't sleep. James grabbed another book, heading upstairs. Some rules were made to be broken, especially for elephants who couldn't sleep. Happy 1-year family day. 5 voices shouted in unison as James walked into the kitchen. Balloons bobbed against the ceiling, and a slightly lopsided cake sat on the counter. We made it ourselves, Maya announced proudly, icing smeared on her cheek. With supervision, Tiana added quickly, seeing James's alarmed look. Mrs. Chen from next door helped. James blinked in surprise. Sarah's mother? She brought over her mixer yesterday. Keisha grinned, said anyone who survives a year of Dad's cooking deserves a proper cake. The twins lit the candles, one for each month they'd been a family. Make a wish, Jessica urged. James looked at his daughters, really looked at them. Maya, taller now, her hair perfectly braided, by Tiana, not him. The twins in matching soccer jerseys from their new team. Keisha wearing the art club president badge she'd earned last week. Tiana, relaxed and smiling, her college acceptance letter pinned to the fridge. He didn't need to wish for anything else. Before cake, Tiana said, "We have something to show you." They led him to the living room, where his old armchair had vanished. In its place stood a new recliner with a big red bow. "Your knee's been bothering you," Keisha explained. "We all saved up," Jasmine added. "Even Maya." Jessica nudged her little sister. "I gave $5 whole," Maya said solemnly. James sank into the chair, testing the lever. His knee thanked him immediately. "This is too much," he protested. "No." Tiana perched on the armrest. "You gave us a home. A chair's the least we can do." Later that afternoon, James tackled his next challenge, Maya's hair. After a year of practice, he could manage basic styles, but today was different. "Are you sure you want me to try this?" he asked, studying the YouTube tutorial again. Tiana could dash. "I want you to do it," Maya insisted. For the father-daughter dance, James took a deep breath and separated the first section of hair. His fingers moved with more confidence now, muscle memory taking over. "Tell me if I pull too tight." "You never do anymore," Maya said. "Not like at the beginning." He chuckled, remembering those first disastrous attempts. "Dad?" Maya's voice got quiet. "Is it okay that I don't remember my birth, Dad?" James's hands stilled for a moment. "Of course it is. Memory's funny like that. And you were very young. I remember you learning to braid," she said, "and reading 2 stories every night. And burning the lasagna." "We don't talk about the lasagna incident," James said seriously, making her giggle. An hour later, Maya admired her neat cornrows in the mirror. "Perfect," she declared. "Really?" James couldn't quite believe it. "Well, almost perfect. Good enough for the dance." From downstairs came the sound of hammering. The twins had insisted on repainting their room. No more baby blue. And somehow the project had turned into a full family renovation weekend. James found Tiana and Keisha debating wall colors in the hallway. "Not yellow," Tiana was saying. "It'll make the space feel smaller." "But it's cheerful." Keisha held up a paint swatch. "What about a compromise?" James suggested. "Yellow accent wall." Both girls stared at him. "Dad's learning interior design now." Keisha whispered loudly. "Those late-night HGTV marathons must be paying off," Tiana smirked. "Hey, I contain multitudes," James protested, then immediately regretted it when they both groaned. "Dad jokes should be illegal," Keisha declared. "Absolutely criminal," Tiana agreed. The doorbell interrupted their debate. Sarah Chen stood on the porch with a folder. "Final home visit," she announced. "Then you're officially off monitoring." James led her through the house, now filled with signs of life. Homework spread across the dining table, Maya's art on the fridge, sports gear by the door. The transformation is remarkable, Sarah noted, making final checks on her list. Both the house and the family. Some things haven't changed, James said as another crash echoed from upstairs, followed by twin voices insisting nothing broke. Sarah laughed. That's family for you. Real, messy, wonderful family. After she left, James found a quiet moment to call the doctor about his knee. The pain had been getting worse, but he didn't want to worry the girls. Let's schedule some tests, the doctor said, just to be safe. That evening, they gathered for a special dinner. James had finally mastered one recipe, Margaret's old meatloaf. A toast, Tiana raised her glass. To 1 year of being stuck with the world's most stubborn dad. To learning to braid, Maya added. To not burning down the kitchen, the twins chimed in. To family, Keisha said simply. James looked around the table, his table, their table, and felt his heart could burst. Wait! Maya jumped up. Present time. More presents? The chair was more than enough dash, but Maya was already running to get something from her room. She returned with a large, wrapped package. Inside was a photo album, but not their usual one. This was filled with new pictures, professional ones. We had a secret photo shoot, Keisha explained. Mrs. Chen's sister is a photographer, Tiana added. James turned the pages slowly. His family, beautifully captured. The twins mid-laugh. Keisha with her art supplies. Maya hugging trunk. Tiana looking confident and strong. And in the center, all 6 of them together. No awkwardness, no tension. Just love. There's space in the back, Maya pointed out. For more pictures. For years and years. Because you're stuck with us, Tiana said firmly. For good. James didn't try to hide his tears. That night, after Maya's stories, 3, for the special occasion, after the twins finally settled down, after Keisha finished her art project, James found Tiana in the kitchen. Nervous about college? He asked. A little. She stirred her tea. It's not too far, though. I can come home on weekends. Home? James repeated softly. Yeah. Tiana smiled. Home. Later, in his new recliner, James looked through the photo album again. His knee ached, reminding him of the doctor's call, but he pushed the worry aside. Tonight was for celebrating. 1 year of laughter, tears, growth, love. 1 year of family. The house creaked with familiar sounds. Maya singing to Trunk, the twins whispering secrets, Keisha's music playing softly, Tiana's footsteps in the hallway. No more silence. No more emptiness. Just life, in all its beautiful chaos. And tomorrow? Tomorrow would bring more adventures, more challenges, more moments to capture in their ever-growing album. James wouldn't want it any other way. The hospital room felt too white, too sterile. James stared at the ceiling, counting the tiles while the 4 dripped steadily beside him. The pneumonia had hit hard and fast, turning a simple cold into something much worse. Mr. Wilson needs rest, he heard a nurse telling someone outside. Family only dash. We are family. Maya's voice carried clearly through the door. Is our dad? The nurse appeared, looking flustered. Your daughters are quite persistent. James smiled weakly. They get that from me. 5 girls filed in, led by Tiana. She'd driven home from college as soon as she got the call. You look awful, she said bluntly. Thank you, sweetheart. Always good for my ego. Maya climbed carefully onto the edge of his bed, mindful of the tubes. We made a schedule. She held up a color-coded chart that screamed Keisha's organizational skills. Someone will be here all the time, Keisha explained. The twins have morning shift before school. I'll come after art club. Tiana's taking evenings dash. Girls, James tried to sit up, wheezing slightly. You don't have to dash. Yes, we do. Tiana's voice left no room for argument. You've taken care of us for 2 years. Our turn. The twins pulled chairs closer to the bed. Jessica unpacked a bag. Books, cards, Maya's latest art projects. Mrs. Chen's driving us to school, Jasmine reported. And helping with dinner. The whole neighborhood's helping, Keisha added. Even Tom and Linda brought casseroles. James raised an eyebrow. Tom and Linda? Our Tom and Linda. People change, Tiana shrugged. Especially when they see what real family looks like. A nurse came in to check James's vitals. She smiled at the girls. Your daughters haven't left the waiting room for 2 days, she told James. They've been coordinating with the staff, asking about medications, making sure you're comfortable. They're good girls, James said proudly. The best, Dad, Maya corrected, snuggling closer. The nurse checked his temperature. Still high, but better. The antibiotics are working. After she left, Tiana pulled out her laptop. Time for your entertainment. Please. No more medical documentaries, James groaned. Better. She grinned. Home videos. From the last 2 years. The screen flickered to life. There was Maya's first dance recital, James beaming in the audience. The twins' soccer championship. Keisha's art show opening. Tiana's graduation. Remember this? Keisha pointed as a new clip started. Your first successful braid. They watched James on screen, tongue between his teeth in concentration as he worked on Maya's hair. Only took 6 months. He chuckled, then coughed. Tiana handed him water. Her hands were gentle but sure, just like his had been during their first few uncertain weeks as a family. Outside the room, they could hear hospital staff chatting at the nurse's station. Those girls haven't left his side, one was saying. You should have seen them organizing his care schedule. The youngest one drew pictures for all the nurses, another added. And the oldest, she knows more about his medication than some of our interns. James felt tears prick his eyes. His daughters, strong, caring, protective. Dad. Maya's voice was small. You're coming home soon, right? Of course, sweetheart. Can't leave you in charge of the kitchen too long. The house might not survive. Hey, Keisha protested. I'll have you know I make excellent microwave mac and cheese. Gourmet, the twins said together, rolling their eyes. A doctor appeared in the doorway. Time for another round of tests. We'll wait, Tiana said firmly. All of you. The doctor looked at the 5 determined faces. All of us, they chorused. Hours passed. The girls took turns getting snacks from the cafeteria. Maya fell asleep on the small couch, trunk clutched tight. The twins played quiet card games. Keisha worked on homework. Tiana never left her chair by the bed. Night fell. The hospital corridors grew quiet. Girls, James said softly, you should go home. Get some real sleep. Not happening, Tiana replied, not looking up from her book. At least take Maya home, Dash. I'm staying. Maya sat up, suddenly wide awake. Family stays together. James remembered saying those same words 2 years ago, fighting to adopt them all. Now they were fighting for him. A new nurse came in for the night shift. She checked his chart, then looked around the crowded room. You know, she said, in 20 years of nursing, I've never seen family like this. We're special, Maya informed her. Yes, the nurse agreed softly. You are. Later, when most of the girls had finally dozed off, Tiana sat in the dim light, still watching over him. You scared us, she said quietly. I'm sorry. Just don't do it again. We need you. James reached for her hand. I need you too. All of you. Morning brought improvement. His fever broke. The doctors spoke optimistically about discharge plans. A few more days, they said. Then home care. The girls immediately started planning. We'll move your bed downstairs, Dash. I'll handle medications, Dash. I can read to you for a change, Dash. No cooking until you're better. James listened to them coordinate, negotiate, problem solve. His daughters had become a seamless team. Sarah Chen visited, bringing more casseroles and community support. The neighborhood's rallying, she reported. Even Tom's organizing a meal train. Miracles never cease, James smiled. No. Sarah looked around at his sleeping daughters, at the handmade get-well cards, at the love filling the sterile room. They don't. Recovery at home was slow but steady. The girls enforced rest with military precision. Maya's on dad watching duty, Keisha announced one morning. No escaping to check work emails. I brought trunk for backup, Maya added seriously. James settled into his recliner, the one they'd given him just months ago, and watched his daughters move through their daily routines. Tiana had delayed returning to college, despite his protests. Family first, she said simply. The twins coordinated medication schedules between soccer practices. Keisha managed homework and household tasks with clipboard efficiency. Maya appointed herself chief entertainment officer. And slowly, day by day, they fell into a new rhythm. One afternoon, James found strength to sit at the piano, Margaret's old piano, untouched for years. You play? Maya asked, curious. I used to. Your mom? Margaret. She taught music. His fingers found familiar keys. A simple lullaby filled the room. One by one, his daughters gathered. Maya leaned against his shoulder. The twins sat cross-legged on the floor. Keisha perched on the piano bench beside him. And Tiana, strong, protective Tiana, wrapped her arms around him from behind. Teach us, she whispered. So he did, note by note, day by day, adding new music to their home. Weeks passed. Health returned. Life resumed its beautiful chaos. But something had shifted, deepened. They'd faced their first real crisis as a family and emerged stronger. On his first fully healthy day, James found a new photo album on his desk. Inside were pictures from the hospital, his daughters taking turns reading to him, Maya drawing with nurses, the twins organizing his room, Keisha managing paperwork, Tiana standing guard. On the last page, they'd written, "To Dad, for teaching us that family means never facing anything alone, for showing us that love is stronger than fear, for giving us a home, a future, and most importantly, each other. We love you. Your daughters, forever and always." 5 signatures. 5 hearts. 1 family. James traced their names, remembering a quiet house, empty rooms, silent mornings. Now his home burst with life, homework dramas and teenage chaos, Maya's dance practices and the twins' soccer games, Keisha's art supplies everywhere and Tiana's weekend visits. Perfect in its imperfection. Complete. Dad! Maya called from the kitchen. Story time. 2 stories, the twins added. 3. Keisha bargained. As many as he wants, Tiana said firmly. He's still recovering. James smiled, closing the album carefully. Time for another chapter in their ongoing story. Together. Always together.